When mischief strikes the neighborhood, who do you call? Barkforce. Join Shaz, the clever and courageous, and Fred, the cheerful and ever enthusiastic, as they transform into the ultimate canine superheroes. Armed with a mysterious cape and a trusty mask, this dynamic duo is on a mission to stop the notorious squirrel gang from raiding bird feeders and causing chaos. In this thrilling and heartwarming adventure, Shaz and Fred learn the value of teamwork, fairness, and helping others as they uncover a clever solution to unite the neighborhood. Packed with action, humor, and a touch of mystery, Doggy Superheroes, Barkforce Unleashed, will inspire young readers to think creatively and embrace their inner hero. Perfect for kids who love animals, superheroes, and stories about friendship and doing the right thing. Get ready to unleash the fun and adventure with Barkforce. Will Shaz and Fred save the day? Find out inside.
It all began on a rainy afternoon when Shaz was exploring the attic of their house. Rain drummed on the roof as she nosed through dusty boxes filled with old books, toys, and forgotten treasures. Suddenly, her paw brushed against something soft. Pulling it out, she uncovered a vibrant red cape with a golden paw print stitched on the back. It shimmered faintly in the dim light.
Fred, look what I found.
Shaz barked, bounding down the stairs with the cape trailing behind her like a superhero. Fred, lying on his back and playing with a squeaky toy shaped like a bone, stopped mid-squeak. He rolled onto his paws and tilted his head.
What is it, Shaz? Did you find another one of your old chew toys?
Shaz draped the cape over her shoulders, puffing out her chest.
It's not a chew toy, Fred. It's a superhero cape. Look at the golden paw print. It's meant for greatness.
Inspired, Fred began rummaging through a box of costumes in the corner of the room. Moments later, he emerged triumphantly, wearing a black mask over his eyes.
We're superheroes now.
Fred declared, striking a pose.
We need a name.
Fred said, his tail wagging excitedly as he adjusted his mask. Shaz thought for a moment, her nose twitching with concentration.
How about Barkforce?
Fred's eyes lit up.
Perfect. Barkforce, the protectors of peace, defenders of justice, and sniffers of truth.
Just as Shaz and Fred were soaking in their newfound superhero glory, a loud ruckus erupted outside. Shaz's ears perked up, and Fred's nose twitched. The unmistakable chittering of squirrels came from the backyard. Peeking out the window, they spotted the neighborhood squirrel gang tipping over bird feeders, scattering seeds everywhere and stuffing their cheeks.
It's time for Barkforce to save the day.
Shaz barked, leaping off the couch. Fred, already in action mode, grabbed his squeaky toy as a makeshift tool. Together, they burst through the back door, their cape and mask flying as they ran toward the chaos. The squirrel gang, notorious for their mischief, spotted Barkforce charging toward them. They squeaked in alarm and scattered in all directions, but one particularly bold squirrel held its ground. Clutching a stolen sunflower seed in its tiny paws, it smirked.
You'll never catch me.
It taunted before dashing up a tree. Shaz and Fred skidded to a stop beneath the tree.
We can't let them get away with this.
Shaz said.
You take the left side, I'll take the right.
Fred nodded and wagged his tail as they split up, circling the tree to corner their mischievous target. Fred sniffed his way around the bushes, his nose leading him to a smaller squirrel trying to escape with a peanut.
Hold it right there.
Fred barked, puffing out his chest.
Drop the peanut or face the wrath of Barkforce.
Startled, the squirrel squeaked and tossed the peanut before scurrying off into the trees. Fred picked up the peanut triumphantly and wagged his tail.
One down, a dozen to go.
He said to himself before glancing up to see Shaz chasing another squirrel toward the park. Shaz sprinted across the grassy park, her cape billowing behind her like a red blur. The squirrel ahead leaped between tree branches with acorns falling like raindrops. But Shaz didn't give up.
Justice always catches up with you.
She barked. The squirrel gang regrouped in their cleverly hidden tree fort at the edge of the park.
What do we do now?
One asked nervously. Their leader, Rocky, a big gray squirrel with a scar on his ear, stepped forward confidently.
We hold the fort. They'll never get past us.
Shaz and Fred arrived at the base of the tree. Shaz tilted her head back to look at the towering fort above.
Surrender now, and we'll go easy on you.
She barked. Fred, wagging his tail, added,
Yeah, or face the power of Barkforce.
The squirrels began to hurl acorns, twigs, and bits of bark down from their fortress. Fred yelped and dove behind a bush.
They've got good aim.
He said, peeking out. Shaz shielded herself with her cape.
Stay calm, Fred. We need a plan.
Shaz spotted a rope hanging from the side of the tree fort. Her eyes sparkled.
Fred, that's our way in.
She whispered.
Follow my lead.
The two heroes crouched low, sneaking through the bushes to avoid the rain of acorns. Fred watched as Shaz grabbed the rope with her teeth and started climbing.
Be careful, Shaz.
He whispered. Fred then grabbed the bottom of the rope and clambered up, his mask slipping over one eye.
I'm right behind you.
He said, his tail wagging with determination. Halfway up the rope, Shaz stopped and looked back at Fred.
Quiet, Fred. We're almost there. We don't want them to notice us.
Fred nodded, his paw gripping the rope tightly. Above them, the squirrels were chattering loudly, unaware of their approach. As they reached the edge of the tree fort, Shaz peeked over and saw the squirrels gathering piles of birdseed in small, acorn-shaped buckets.
They've got a whole operation up here.
Shaz whispered.
Get ready, Fred.
Fred adjusted his mask and gave a firm nod. With a mighty leap, Shaz landed in the middle of the fort. Fred followed, tumbling in with a dramatic roll that ended with him standing triumphantly.
Barkforce is here.
Fred declared. The squirrels froze, their tiny paws gripping acorns and seeds. Rocky, the squirrel leader, stepped forward, his tail twitching.
What do you want?
He growled, narrowing his eyes. Shaz stood tall, her cape flowing behind her.
We want you to return the bird seed and stop braiding the feeders.
She barked. Rocky smirked.
And why should we? The birds don't share their food with us. We're just looking out for our own.
Fred stepped forward, his tail wagging.
Stealing isn't the answer. If you work with us, we can help you find food without taking everything.
The other squirrels murmured among themselves. Rocky hesitated, looking at his gang.
We didn't mean to take it all.
He admitted.
We just needed enough to get by. Sharing is caring, right?
Fred nodded eagerly.
Exactly. Sharing is caring. But taking everything isn't fair. Let's find a way to share the birdseed while helping you gather your own food.
Shaz added.
If we work together, everyone can be happy.
Rocky looked thoughtful for a moment before nodding.
All right, Barkforce. You've got a deal. We'll stop raiding the bird feeders, but you have to help us find food.
The squirrels cheered, their tiny voices filling the tree fort. The next morning, Shaz and Fred led the squirrels to the nearby park, where acorns and seeds were scattered beneath tall oak trees.
See, there's plenty of food here.
Shaz said. The squirrels squeaked with joy as they started collecting the bounty. As the squirrels filled their buckets with food, the birds returned to their feeders. They chirped happily, finally able to eat in peace. Fred wagged his tail. Shaz nodded with a smile. Rocky approached Shaz and Fred, holding a small pile of acorns in his paws.
Thank you, Barkforce. You've shown us a better way. We won't forget this.
Shaz shook Rocky's paw.
That's what superheroes are for. Helping others.
The squirrel gang and Barkforce worked together to spread the food evenly. The birds chirped their thanks, and the squirrels chattered happily. It was a peaceful scene, one that showed how teamwork could solve even the trickiest problems. As the day came to an end, Shaz and Fred stood at the edge of the park, watching their work unfold.
I'd say that's another successful mission for Barkforce.
Shaz said. Fred wagged his tail.
Yeah, and I think we made some new friends along the way.
And so, Barkforce became legends in the neighborhood. The squirrels kept their promise, and the birds sang their gratitude every morning. Shaz and Fred knew that as long as there was mischief to stop and justice to serve, Barkforce would always be ready to save the day.
Dear reader, I hope you and your child enjoyed following Shaz and Fred in their adventure in Doggy Superheroes Barkforce Unleashed. My goal with this book is to create enjoyment in a good mystery in children from an early age. If you could take a moment to leave a review for Doggy Superheroes Barkforce Unleashed online, I would greatly appreciate it. Your feedback will help other parents and young readers decide if this is the right book for them. As an author just starting out, your reviews and ratings help in getting this book noticed. Thank you in advance for taking the time to share your thoughts. I aim to create many more books that entertain and perhaps educated while fostering a love for reading. Wishing you and your young reader many more adventures ahead, Lynn Beauville.